Imagine for a moment the richest man in the world, owner of Tesla, SpaceX, Twitter, Elon Musk. Now imagine this same man crying alone in his office, with only $100 in the bank, being rejected by every investor, having to choose between paying rent or buying food. This is not fiction. This is the real story of Elon Musk that you've never heard before. A story he himself tried to hide for years, but which today I'm going to reveal completely to you. Because the truth about Elon Musk is not about genius or luck. It's about something much deeper and more disturbing. It's about trauma, survival, and a sick obsession with proving he's not a failure. If you think you know Elon Musk's story, prepare to discover that everything you knew was just the tip of the iceberg. Stay until the end of this video because I'm going to reveal exactly what was the darkest moment of his life that almost made him give up everything, and more importantly, what was the one thing that stopped him from throwing it all away. And I guarantee that when you discover this, you'll understand why you too can overcome any obstacle in your life. The real story of Elon Musk begins far from the Silicon Valley spotlight. It begins in Pretoria, South Africa in 1971, in a house where fear was more common than love. Elon Musk, Elon's father, wasn't just an engineer. He was a violent, manipulative man who turned the family home into a psychological battlefield. May Musk, the mother, a beautiful woman who worked as a model, lived in terror of her husband's fits of rage. But what you don't know is that Elon, still a child, became the main target of paternal fury. Errol didn't just yell at Elon. He humiliated him publicly, said his son was useless, that he would never amount to anything in life. In several interviews Elon gave years later, he revealed that his father used to call him idiot and loser in front of family friends. Imagine an 8 or 9-year-old child hearing this from his own father. The trauma was so deep that Elon developed severe stuttering and began to take refuge in science fiction books. He read compulsively not for pleasure but for escape. It was the only way he found to escape the brutal reality he lived at home. At 10 years old, Elon was already reading 10 hours a day. He memorized entire encyclopedias. And you know why? Because he was desperate to prove to his father that he wasn't an idiot. Every page he read was a desperate attempt to become smart enough to earn the paternal love that never came. But the trauma didn't stop at home. At school, Elon was the bully's favorite target. He was skinny, weird, talked about robots and rockets when other kids talked about soccer. In 1983, at age 12, something happened that marked Elon forever. A group of boys beat him so brutally that he was hospitalized. He lost consciousness and woke up unable to breathe properly. Doctors said he was lucky to be alive. At that moment, lying in the hospital bed, Elon made a decision that would change his life forever. He promised himself that one day he would be so powerful, so rich, so important, that no one could ever hurt him again. That no one could ever call him a failure again. And it was this promise made by a wounded child that became the driving force behind everything Elon Musk achieved in life. At 17, Elon literally fled South Africa. He had no money, no contacts, no plans. He just knew he needed to get out of that country, that house, that hell. He got a Canadian passport through his mother and arrived in Canada with $2,000 in his pocket and an impossible dream of reaching the United States. What happened in the first months in Canada was brutal. Elon slept in cheap hostels, sometimes on train station floors. He ate potatoes and hot dogs because that's what he could afford. But you know what was the worst? The loneliness. For the first time in his life, Elon was completely alone. No family, no friends, no one. And it was in this moment of complete vulnerability that he almost gave up for the first time. He himself said in an interview that there were nights when he called home, crying, begging to come back. But something happened that changed everything. Elon got a job cutting wood on a farm. The work was brutal, 12 hours a day under the scorching sun. But for the first time in his life, Elon realized he was physically capable of surviving anything. That he could endure any suffering. And this discovery became his first great strength. 2 years later, Elon managed to transfer to the University of Pennsylvania. He studied physics and economics, but what really consumed him were books about business and technology. He was obsessed with the idea of creating something that would change the world. Something that would prove, once and for all, that he wasn't the failure his father said he was. In 1995, at age 24, Elon made the riskiest decision of his life so far. He dropped out of his Stanford PhD after just 2 days to create his first company, Zip2. You need to understand what this meant. Elon was giving up a safe academic career to bet everything on an idea that nobody believed in. Zip2 was a kind of online Yellow Pages, connecting local businesses with consumers. It seems simple now, but in 1995 this was revolutionary. Elon and his brother Kimball rented a small office in Palo Alto and started working 100 hours a week. They slept in the office, showered at the local YMCA, and ate instant noodles every day. For months, they couldn't even afford an apartment. But the worst was yet to come. Investors constantly rejected the idea. Nobody will use the internet to find local businesses, they said. This is a waste of time. Elon got to the point where he had only $100 in the bank. He had to choose between paying the office electricity bill or buying food. And it was at this moment that he almost gave up for the second time. He called his mother, crying, saying that maybe his father was right. Maybe he really was a failure. But something extraordinary happened. In 1996, after months of rejections, an investor finally believed in Elon's vision. Not only believed but invested $3 million in Zip2. Suddenly, Elon went from having $100 to having a company valued in millions. But you know what's interesting? Elon wasn't relieved. He became even more obsessive. Because now he had proven he could succeed, but that wasn't enough. He needed to prove he could succeed bigger than anyone could imagine. In 1999, Compaq bought Zip2 for $307 million. Elon, at 28, received $22 million. For the first time in his life he was officially rich. But instead of relaxing, instead of celebrating, Elon did something that shocked everyone around him. He took practically all the money and invested it in creating an even riskier new company, X.com. The idea was to create an online bank, something no one had tried before. People thought Elon had gone crazy. Why are you risking everything again? They asked. You've already proven your point. But Elon couldn't stop. Because for him, stopping meant giving his father the chance to be right. It meant accepting that maybe he was lucky but not necessarily special. X.com eventually became PayPal, but the journey there almost completely destroyed Elon. He worked 120 hours a week, slept 3 hours a night when he could sleep. His health was rapidly deteriorating. He developed chronic insomnia and began having panic attacks. In 2000, during a crucial meeting with investors, Elon fainted from exhaustion. He woke up in the hospital with doctors saying his body was literally shutting down from so much stress. It was at this moment that he almost gave up for the third time. He called his brother Kimball and said, "I can't do this anymore. My body is killing me. Maybe I should just sell everything and live a normal life." But Kimball said something that changed everything. "Elon, you're not doing this just for yourself. You're doing this to prove something much bigger. And if you give up now, you'll hate yourself for the rest of your life." And Kimball was right. Elon didn't give up. PayPal was sold to eBay in 2002 for $1.5 billion, and Elon pocketed $165 million. At 31, he was among the richest entrepreneurs in the world. But you know what happened next? Instead of enjoying his fortune, Elon did something that made everyone think he had completely lost his sanity. He invested almost all the money in two completely impossible companies, Tesla and SpaceX. Let me explain how insane this was. Tesla wanted to make electric cars when everyone knew electric cars were a commercial failure. All automakers had tried and failed. SpaceX wanted to compete with NASA and space agencies that had decades of experience and billion-dollar government budgets. People didn't just think Elon was going to go bankrupt. They were sure of it. And for a while it seemed like they were right. Tesla's first years were an absolute nightmare. The cars literally caught fire, batteries exploded, production was completely delayed. The company was burning millions of dollars a month and couldn't deliver the promised cars. Investors were fleeing, employees were resigning, the press was massacring Elon daily. But SpaceX was even worse. The first 3 rockets exploded. Literally exploded. Millions of dollars turning into smoke in seconds. NASA was publicly laughing at Elon. Other billionaires were making jokes about the playboy who wants to play astronaut. In 2008, Elon was financially devastated. He had spent practically his entire PayPal fortune. He was living on borrowed money, asking friends for money to pay basic personal bills. And it was in this year that the most dramatic near surrenders of his life happened. First, in March 2008, Elon was in Tesla's office at 3 a.m. alone, looking at piles of unpaid bills. He called his then wife and said, "I think I made the biggest mistake of my life. Maybe I should sell everything and accept that I'm not who I thought I was." Second, in August 2008, SpaceX's third rocket exploded. Elon was watching from the control room. When he saw that explosion, he left the room, went to the bathroom, and for the first time since childhood, cried in despair. He stayed there for 20 minutes, seriously considering closing SpaceX forever. Third, in September 2008, Tesla was 3 days away from declaring bankruptcy. Elon could no longer raise investments, couldn't pay employees. He was literally counting the days until the end of everything. At this moment, he almost called his father to ask for financial help. Can you imagine what this meant for Elon? Going back crawling to the man who had spent his entire childhood saying he was a failure? But something extraordinary happened in these moments of almost giving up. Something that revealed the true nature of Elon Musk's obsession. You want to know what really prevented Elon Musk from giving up in these crucial moments? It wasn't courage. It wasn't genius. It wasn't future vision. It was something much more primitive and powerful. It was the absolute terror of proving his father was right. Let me explain. Every time Elon was about to give up, he remembered that 8-year-old boy being called an idiot by his own father. He remembered the moment in the hospital, after being beaten at school, when he promised himself that one day he would be untouchable. And he realized that giving up wasn't just failing in business. It was validating every cruel word his father had said. It was accepting that maybe he really was a failure who got lucky a few times. In September 2008, when Tesla was 3 days away from bankruptcy, instead of giving up, Elon did something desperate. He invested his last $35 million personal dollars in the company. He literally bet every cent he had. Why? Because in his head, losing everything was better than giving up and proving his father right. In the same period, when SpaceX had failed 3 consecutive times, instead of closing the company, Elon decided to bet everything on the 4th rocket. He took personal loans, sold assets, did anything to get money for one more attempt. And you know what happened? SpaceX's 4th rocket worked perfectly. It was the first private rocket to reach orbit. Tesla managed to raise last-minute investments and avoided bankruptcy by a matter of hours. But here's the most important part. Even when Elon started succeeding again, the obsession didn't stop. Because he realized something fundamental about himself. He wasn't just trying to succeed. He was trying to become so unquestionably successful that no one, not even himself, could doubt his worth. This is how the version of Elon Musk we know today was born. The man who works 100 hours a week not because he needs to, but because stopping would mean giving space for doubt. The man who creates company after company not because he's greedy, but because each new success is new proof that he's not the failure his father said he was. The man who promises to colonize Mars not just for scientific vision, but because it's the most ambitious goal that exists. And if he succeeds, no one will ever be able to question whether he's truly special. Now you might be thinking, but this isn't healthy. Elon is being driven by trauma, not positive purpose. And you're right. But here's the most important lesson of this story. Sometimes what breaks us is also what builds us. Elon's trauma with his father created an obsessive need to prove his worth. But this same obsession forced him to develop extraordinary characteristics. First, extreme resistance to pain. Because Elon learned from childhood that he could survive any suffering, he became capable of enduring levels of stress and work that would break any normal person. Second, inability to accept impossible. Because for Elon, accepting that something is impossible is accepting limitations. And accepting limitations is proving right those who said he was limited. Third, obsession with excellence. Because mediocrity for Elon is not just insufficient. It's a confirmation of his worst fears about himself. These characteristics, born from trauma, became the foundations of extraordinary success. Tesla revolutionized the automotive industry. SpaceX reduced the cost of going to space by 90%. Neuralink is developing brain-computer interfaces. Starlink is bringing internet to remote places around the world. The boy who was called a failure by his father became the man who is literally changing human civilization. But the most important lesson is not about Elon. It's about you. We all have traumas, rejections, moments when someone said we weren't good enough. The difference between people who overcome this and those who are destroyed by it is not the absence of pain. It's the ability to transform that pain into fuel. Elon Musk didn't achieve success despite trauma. He achieved success because of trauma. Because he took the deepest pain of his life and transformed it into the most powerful force of his life. So let me ask you, what are you doing with your pain? Are you letting it define you as victims, or are you transforming it into fuel? Because the truth is that everyone who achieved something extraordinary in life had to transform some form of suffering into motivation. What prevented Elon Musk from giving up wasn't natural talent. It wasn't luck. It wasn't family support. It was the absolute refusal to validate those who doubted him. It was the conscious decision to use pain as fuel instead of letting pain use him as a victim. And you have the same choice. Every time someone tells you that you're not capable. Every time you fail at something important. Every time life puts you against the wall. You can choose to be defined by that pain or you can choose to be fueled by that pain. Elon Musk chose to be fueled. And look where it took him. He's not just the richest man in the world. He's the man who is literally expanding the possibilities of what it means to be human. If a traumatized boy from South Africa who was beaten at school and humiliated by his own father could reach this level, imagine what you can do with your traumas. The question is not whether you will face difficulties. You will. The question is, will you use these difficulties as excuses or as fuel? Elon Musk almost gave up 10 times. But he chose not to give up even once. And this choice, repeated thousands of times over decades, created the future we're all living today. Now it's your turn to choose. If this video inspired you in any way, if you were able to see your own struggles from a different perspective, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, use this inspiration to transform your lives. Because the world needs the extraordinary version of you. And that version is only born when you decide to transform your pain into power. Thank you for watching, and remember, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But only if you choose to be strengthened.